I would like to welcome you to my class. My name is Angie Panzer, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about me to get started. I was born and raised in Vienna, Austria, and I have some pictures up here to show you where I went to school in Vienna. So this is the school that I attended, and it was on the Beethoven Plaza. So Beethoven was right outside our school, and this school is right in the center of Vienna, and it's a language humanities oriented school, and the school systems over there are different. So this high school is more comparable to a junior college here in America. So this is where I went to school, and we had some famous people like Schubert and that attended that school as well, Franz Schubert. Now this is the inside of the school, and Harry Potter had nothing on us. Okay. This building used to be a place for where nuns lived, and they had all kinds of holy statues and stuff in the school, and they converted it into a school for us, but left the interior as it was when the nuns used to live there. Okay, so I went to school in Vienna, and Vienna was the capital of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and it was a multilingual city. Not only multilingual, but we were surrounded by all different kinds of art, modern art, what you would call traditional art. I have a picture up here of my favorite artist, which is Gustav Klimt, which was Art Nouveau artist, and I love anything Art Nouveau. And this is his rendition of a family tree or tree of life. In the middle, you have a picture of what our library in Vienna looks like. On this side, one of the palaces, the insides of the room, Maria Theresa. This is where Marie Antoinette grew up. So, nice place. On the bottom, you have some of the modern art that is in Vienna today, created by a man named Friedrich Hundertwasser. Translated, his name means 100 water. But he was a very interesting person. And people actually live in these buildings. He didn't like straight lines. And of course, surrounded by music. I went to a music conservatory in Vienna, and we had the music of Johann Strauss, the Waltz King. And for us now, he looks like C3PO since they covered him in gold. And then you have Beethoven at the cemetery in Vienna, and also Mozart, who we don't know where he's buried because he was buried in a pauper's grave. So they just put a statue of him in the park. And this is the Musikverein, the music hall in Vienna, where the Vienna Philharmonic reside. So I grew up with all this, and then of course that's because this is the way I look because of all the food we ate. And I just wanted to thank my support team here while I'm talking about food. My husband Hans is here, and our son Tristan in the back is my videographer. So this in the middle is Tristan's favorite dish. It's a steamed yeast dumpling with a plum jam made with plums that are cooked for hours and hours and hours, and then had some rum added to them. So this is called a Germknödel, a yeast dumpling. And of course you have the schnitzel and the Sachertorte, Apfelstrudel, of course, and the Vienna goulash. But
any samples of that today?
I was busy yesterday. I didn't have time to cook. But anyway, Hans and I, we immigrated to the United States in 1979. And 2 weeks after we arrived here, I was hired by Family Search to help them with all their different programs. Back then, we had the opportunity to start the indexing program in its infant steps. And so from that time forward, I have worked for Ancestry, I have worked for MyHeritage, I have worked for Family Search. I just make the rounds every once in a while. And now I'm an independent consultant, and I mostly work for MyHeritage. And my work that I do takes place behind the scenes. So what does that mean? That means that when they have big collections that these companies would like to index that are in different languages. For example, big German collections, they come and ask me to put together a spec sheet. They send it out to all the different vendors, and whoever does then they get those samples back, and then they have me audit those samples, and then they will choose the vendor they think did the best job. Now, if that vendor has not had experience indexing before, they send me to train that vendor. And so I have ended up in many different places. The last places I have been to were Bangladesh. And so here are some of my students in Bangladesh that I trained in German, Latin, French, and Italian to do all these different collections. And they are the most nicest people you can imagine. And of course, you cannot teach them a language in 2 weeks. And so what they do is they go after characters. So you teach them this is an R, this is an S, this is an M, and they go ahead and index on record by looking at the different characters. So they don't necessarily have to learn the language. And that's the same for you and me. If I know that this is an M, I don't have to know the whole record, but I know this is an M for mother, or Mary, and so forth. So this is what I do. Right now I'm working on a Canadian Quebec collection for MyHeritage. I've just finished an Austrian collection and Hungarian death records. So I'm glad I'm into a language where I can actually understand some of it. So anyway, this class, you're looking for your ancestors, and this class I hope to be able to give you some ideas on how to proceed, tips and tricks on how to use the different websites. When you come to a Family Search library, you probably know that you can access Ancestry and MyHeritage in their computer lab. Now, I have no idea if you can access every single collection because Ancestry and MyHeritage are subscription-based. But I know that most of the collections that they have, you can access through in the Family Search library. Now, all three companies almost have do have a lot of duplications. Census records are on Ancestry as well as Family Search. Ancestry focuses a lot on US, Australia, Canada, those collections, whereas MyHeritage focuses a lot of their collections more on Europe. Eastern Europe is a big one coming on right now. And so some of the things you might find, you can only access on Ancestry. Some things you might find, well, only MyHeritage has indexed. For example, we just finished a collection of civil registration records for North Rhine-Westphalia that you will only find on the MyHeritage site, but not on any of the other sites. One of the things you will only find on Ancestry, which you won't be able to find on MyHeritage or on Family Search, is the Hamburg passenger list, which is very important for those of us who've had ancestors come from Germany to America. And those passenger lists will tell you when they came, what ship they came on, when they arrived, where they arrived. Again, those are some of the specific collections that are only available on these websites. So my first question to you is, what do we have in common with these characters?
Detectives.
What do they search for mostly?
Clues.
Clues, right. They look for clues to solve their mysteries, right? Now, some of them have companions or sidekicks to help them with their work. Now, you and I, we have sidekicks too. They're just named differently. And just consider Ancestry, MyHeritage, and Family Search as your sidekick or your assistant in helping you to do what you want to do. I'm going to first focus on Ancestry. I cannot explain everything that Ancestry has or Ancestry does. I have a handout for you there where I have written some of these, or I have printed out some of these URLs for you to go and look and discover and explore. Now, the best person for Ancestry, what's new, explaining the website and all that, is Krista Cowan. Krista Cowan used to be my boss. And so she's now the corporate genealogist for Ancestry. She has her own blog. She presents at RootsTech and so forth. Now, rootstech.org is also a very good place to go if you want to learn about classes. Some of those are online. They are free. Everything is for free there. And you will find some of those presentations that were done at RootsTech. For example, Krista Cowan, this last RootsTech in February, she talked about the new things that are happening on Ancestry. So one of the things that you need to know is these sites get updated continuously. And just because you couldn't find something last week, it might be there this week. They're always refining, they're always updating. So it's always good to every once in a while go back and see, is there something new for me for this record or so forth, okay? So one of the new things that they have on Ancestry now is called the Ancestry Academy. And it's like a school to help you with your research. And I think it's on your handout. Now, just to lighten the atmosphere here a little bit, Ancestry.com went down today, so I spent time with my family. They seem like nice people. If you're like me, I get stuck with something, and Hans leaves for work. I'm in my jammies at the computer. He comes home from work. I'm still there in my jammies on the computer. So you probably understand, right? So that's about Ancestry. My next thing is talking about MyHeritage. Again, MyHeritage also just started a new thing called MyHeritage Wiki. Now, Family Search and Ancestry, they also have wikis, and wikis are a treasure if you want to find things, to know about things. They tell you, for example, Family Search Wiki, which country would you like to know things about? If you click, they have divided into Europe and Asia and South America. If you click on Europe, all the countries of Europe will come up. Which country do you want? I want the Netherlands. Okay, click on the Netherlands, and it tells you everything they have on the Netherlands to help you. Gazetteers, genealogical word lists, for example, in Dutch and English. So those are the things that wikis are really a great resource for you to help you in your research. And MyHeritage just added their wiki, and they have great support to help you with your research and to navigate the website as well, okay? Now, on your handout, you have these links as well. And something that I just added that's not on your handout, and MyHeritage just released their newspaper collection called oldnews.org. Oldnews.com, I'm sorry, /English. And they have just put online a bunch of European newspapers as well as, US newspapers and so forth. But again, most of them are European, and that website can be in English for you. And those are also a great resource for you to find things. For example, I helped them with their AI for this Old News program, and I had to come up with some examples on what I see and what AI sees, and then they compared the two to see what the AI quality is. And so I'm like, I don't know what to look for in a newspaper. So I thought, well, you know what? I'm just going to put in my last name, Ponza. That's my husband's name. And Ponza is a very rare name in Europe. And boom, it told me in this particular newspaper, we found an entry for a Christine Ponza. And we're like, Christine? Who's Christine? Well, it turns out that from his dad's uncle, the daughter that died at the age of 16 that nobody talked about and nobody knew about. So here's a resource that I think Old News, that website is $75 a year for the subscription. But newspapers, those city directories, those are awesome resources to help you outside of, your regular church, marriage and death records and so forth. So like I said, these I'm just trying to give you an idea of what you can access through these different websites. And some of it will be duplicated. Census records, some of it will be duplicated in all three sites. I don't know about MyHeritage. I haven't done a census record there. I don't think they have census records, but Ancestry and Family Search do. Okay, so little bit about Family Search. Well, Family Search also has great records and is, of course, for free. There is no subscription required. There is a help button on the very top in the right-hand corner that you can use and see, is there a question in there that answers what I'm looking for, or you can type in what you're looking for. Again, Family Search Wiki on the main page. You just look on the top and it says Wiki, and click on that and you'll be amazed on all the different things they find. That you will find dictionaries, word lists, even little concise histories of countries, which is especially helpful when you do European research because of all the different times the border changes. And of course, there's a big library in Sacramento, also the Sacramento Family Search Library that is bigger than the library we have here. If you would like to access, they might have books and so forth that are not digitized yet that you can look things up for. Okay, so any questions on any of this so far? Yes, ma'am.
Might sound stupid, but what does wiki mean?
Wiki is just a small abbreviation of Wikipedia. Okay, so wiki means that people have contributed to that site. They've been, of course, vetted and everything to add some of their knowledge to that wiki, to that page. Now it is monitored, so it's not just anybody can post anything. That you have to submit and you have to make sure that all your saying dates and stuff is correct. But wiki is just short for Wikipedia. They can't use Wikipedia, so they just use wiki. Okay, anything else? Okay, next. Just a few genealogy jokes. My answers are so hard to find, they must have been in a witness protection program. Right? Eventually, all genealogists come to their senses. Ooh. Done. Everything in the family tree has been found and is completely organized, said no genealogist ever. Genealogist disturbs the dead and irritates the living. Right? Genealogy is like playing hide and seek. They hide, we seek. Very true. I'm not stuck. I'm ancestrally challenged. This is a tongue twister for me, ancestrally challenged. Genealogy. It's a contagious disease, but we love it. My husband called cemeteries ancestor farms. Just, people make fun of us all the time, right? And me personally, I work a lot better with dead people than I do with the living. They don't complain. I know office politics, so I do a lot better with them. I have problems with living people. Now, I do have a suggested research roadmap for you. If you want to go ahead and pass out these handouts, please. This is mostly for, general roadmap on how to maybe help you go step by step, right? In addition to that, one of the most important things to do is keeping a research log, okay? Now, a research log, what do you do with the research log? You just write down where you've researched and what you've done and where you've been. Now, you don't have to keep a paper research log. If you're kind of a computer whiz, you can also have a research log in your Google Docs, or there's also a research log form downloadable by Family Search, and I think this is the Family Search research log. there's nothing more frustrating than you're doing some research on somebody and realize you've already been there, but you never wrote it down. So it is important to keep track of what you're doing, where you found the record, and where you've been, and what that record is. Is it a marriage record, birth record, or death record? Now, I'm not the best person for this because I think I remember everything anyway, but it is important to be able to keep that log so you don't duplicate your work and get frustrated by it. Okay, so here are some of the steps that you can take for your research. Start with what you know. Easy, right? What do I know? Next, collect information from living relatives if possible. Now, I am pretty lucky. My mother is 93 years old. And so I can learn a lot about her family, how she grew up, and so forth from her because she's still here to tell me. Now, my father passed away when he was 54, and I have no living relatives on his side whatsoever. And so I don't know anything. I can't ask anybody. So I'm totally reliant on records. And so what I have done with the research, he was also born in, of course, in Vienna, and born in 1929. So I went and I got downloaded postcards, images of what Vienna looked like in 1929, just to build out some content around him. I do have a few photographs of him, but 1929, Vienna, not a good time for pictures and photographs and things like that. My mom was born in 1933, the first year Hitler came to power. And so there was not a lot of good stuff happening at that time. So her stories, what she remembers about her family is important, and I can work off those dates. Maybe some of them are fuzzy, but I can go and reaffirm them with the records I find. Keep a research log. So you know you have an ancestor in Kansas, you know, in 1910, but you're not really sure where. What do you do? Census records. Census records are a treasure trove. Now, if I go to a census record, I know my mom has told me that one of her father's sisters, actually two of them, immigrated to America, but she doesn't know when. She can't remember when. She just remembers as a child during the war that they received care packages from America. And so she said that she thinks they came from Chicago, those care packages. So I went and checked the census records, and sure enough, I found in the 1930 census, I found Hedwig Laschober. And I knew this was the right place to go. From then I could backtrack. So when did they come to America? When did they become citizens? When, you know, and so you can use that and either backtrack or move forward. Naturalization records. Again, if you're looking at immigrants, a great source is also a naturalization record, when they became US citizens. And NARA, the National Archives, they have a wonderful collection of naturalization records. Also, Ancestry has naturalization records, so does Family Search. Now, do they all cover the same period? I'm not sure about that. Again, look in one. If they don't have it, look in the other. Okay? Immigration records, the same thing. When did they come over? Well, I found out that Hedwig and her husband, Carl, Carl came in 1921. So I knew he came in 1921 according to the naturalization records. When did you come to America, right? So I'm like, 1921, Hamburg passenger list at Ancestry. Plug in his name and the year. That's all I needed to do, and the gender. And it told me that Carl came to America in June of 1921. He came on the ship Mount Vernon or something like that. So then I went and I got a picture of the ship. You know, so you can slowly but surely build on what you have and expand by using some of the resources that are available for you. Now, where did they come from? That is the biggest block that people have in researching their ancestors, especially if they came from Europe, because of all the border changes, because of all the wars. The record sets are incomplete. Then when Napoleon came, Napoleon hated the church, so he changed the whole way of keeping record. So when he started the rule and went through Europe, it was Napoleon year rule 1, Napoleon year rule 2, Napoleon year rule 3. And he changed the year. His year started in March, and he changed the names of the months because he didn't want any kind of Catholic influence at all. So it was the spring month, the winter month, the summer month. So until Napoleon got kicked out, they went back to the old stuff. You have a period of maybe 12 years where you're looking in Germany and everything's in French. You're like, what the heck? You know? So you have to be aware of some of those things that happen. Now, there are conversion tables on the internet to convert those dates to what, it could be 15th of May, 1788, something like that. So you just plug in, 12 niveaus, year 5 of the Napoleonic era, and it will spit out the date for you. Google is an awesome resource. Ruth here asked me to look up some of her family that came from Glückstal, which is translated Happy Valley, by the way, and which is now in Ukraine, right?
Yes.
So I'm like, oh man, what kind of records am I going to find from there? So I just typed in the word Glückstal, and there's a Glückstal Association. Did you know that? That kept a historical record. And so you can go and see what they, compiled. Sometimes there's names in there. I read a little bit about it, and it had names of the Lutheran priests that presided over the community and all this kind of stuff. So just don't stick with the pure record, so to speak, of Ancestry or Family Search or MyHeritage. Expand, go to Google and see. You will be surprised how many associations are out there, how many historical societies are out there that you can contact. The next thing will be a Facebook page. Some of these places or societies have awesome Facebook pages that you can join. And people ask each other questions on Facebook. Hey, I'm looking for this part of Czechoslovakia for my Bohemian ancestors. Can anybody help me? I know my aunt came from this place. So these are all awesome resources that you can use. Historical maps are especially important when you do research in places where the borders have shifted constantly. I mean, did you know that Germany wasn't Germany until 1871? What was it before then? Where were the records? Right? Austria wasn't Austria until it is what it is now, until 1918. Right? In my census record, it says my ancestor came from Austria. Well, that could have been in Hungary, Ukraine, Poland. It could have been in any of those areas where the Austro-Hungarian Empire was until 1918. So military records are also a great resource. I know that Ancestry has a ton of military records of ancestors and so forth that served in different wars, World War I, the American War, all that kind of fun stuff. Another really good resource are city directories. For example, I put down my dad's name, last name, and I went back all the way to 1940, and it told me where his dad, he grew up, all the different addresses that they had. And I'm thinking, okay, when he got married, he lived in this part of the city. Where's the next? He was Catholic on paper. Can I find my grandfather's birth record? So I went and looked up that part of the city, looked up the Catholic Church, typed in his name and his birth date, and those records are now being indexed. They weren't when I did it, but I knew which year to look up, and I could read the writing. And sure enough, I found the birth record of my grandfather was born in 1899 in Vienna. The interesting thing about that birth record is that under his mother's name, it says that she was of the religion of Moses. She was Jewish. And so now I'm trying to figure out, okay, so I did a DNA test, and sure enough, 16% Ashkenazi Jew. Who knew? Right? So now I'm backtracking, trying to find her records, and so far I have not been able to find a single record. She said she came from Czechoslovakia. And if that is true, you know what Hitler did to all the synagogues and everything. So I might not find anything on her family. But I knew that that part of my family, that family lore, was true. And even in the Catholic records, the priest put in that they were of a different faith, right? So again, going back, the military records, where did my ancestors serve? What regiment? And then go back and find a story about that regiment. Sometimes on Google, they even have what the uniform looked like when they served. And those are all fun things to know. And that takes you outside of just that, birth record. It brings life to your characters, brings life to your families. Civil registration records. If somebody in your family was Catholic, they got married in a church, they got divorced, remarried, guess what? They couldn't get remarried in a church, right? The Catholic faith does not believe in divorce. So where did they have to go to get married? Civil registration records. Now, Napoleon, he was the one that started civil registration records because he hated the church record. Now, when he got booted, guess what? Back to the church records. So, you're kind of like going back and forth. But you will be able to find those records. And now that Europe is coming online with digitizing everything, it's going to be more and more available to you to be able to find those records. And of course, the last thing is church records. Again, if you're looking for somebody in a place, there are gazetteers galore that you can look up. For Germany, it's Myers Gazetteer. It gives, for example, the name of the place, it gives the state, and then you go down the record and it tells you there was a Lutheran church and a Catholic church. So you know that there were Catholic church records in that state or in that town. So look and see if you can find the Catholic church records. Well, now there are several different websites in Europe, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in my German class, that have started to digitize these Catholic church records. The Lutherans are still kind of behind, and they charge for their websites, where the Catholics don't. It started in Austria very small. We had an archbishop there that was an archivist at heart, and people came to the archdiocese where they kept very important documents, not just for family history research, but for their doctorate and so forth, that they needed to research, and they had to touch all these documents from the 17th, 18th century with their hands. And so he was like, there's got to be a better way. These documents are going to, evaporate pretty soon. Then he got a little bit of money from the Catholic Church to expand because he used to go with his little digital camera and make digital photos of those documents. Then the Catholic Church came in and said, okay, we'll give you X amount of dollars, or euros, to expand that. Then the European Union came on board, so they got more funding. And what that entails is that all of the Catholic Church records in Austria have been digitized. Now, Austria is done. Where do we go next? Well, let's start with Germany. Over 5,000 parishes in Germany have been digitized, and they are online in a website called Matricula, which is Latin for church book. And guess what? Because the EU funds it, they have to give it to us for free, or they lose their funding. Now they are adding Slovenia, they're adding some Italy, they're adding all these different places. So this is going to become huge in Europe. Again, it's going to take time. Are there a lot of Polish records online? Nah. Are there Czech records online? Yes, some of them are indexed on Family Search, but most of them are still in the Czech archives, and they are in Czech. Okay, so but slowly and surely, this is all going to come online and will be made available for all of us to go back more than 4 generations. Now, does anybody have any questions for me regarding this? Yes, ma'am.
I'm just wondering, do you have any suggestions? I have a lot of photos that are very, very old, and I'm not sure who they are, and there's nothing on the back that says who they are. And I'm just wondering, is there anything that we can do to put photos somewhere? And I mean, is there any way
Do you
of
know where they
identifying
come from? Do you know where the photos were taken? Were they taken in Europe or were they taken in the US?
Some maybe US, some maybe Europe.
Okay. Like I said, I know some websites or Facebook pages that where people actually posted pictures and said, this picture was taken, and I don't know who the people in these pictures are. Does anybody out there have any idea or maybe can tell me? Sometimes on the photos, do you have a name of a photographer or a photo studio on them? You can go there, you can use that.
There we go.
Yeah.
They fit the names.
You can actually research the photographer or the photo studio. You know, what I would do first, I would put that name of the photo studio in Google and see what happens.
Okay.
If that photo studio, for example, somebody had a photo from that place and put some information on there, you can go from there. You know, again, Facebook, you would be surprised. People actually do that. People post, I found this birth record. Can somebody please translate that for me? There's a ton of information out there that people utilize to do their family search. Even Family Search has Facebook pages that people say, oh, I have a question about this, or can I do that, or so forth. And there are so many societies out there that have Facebook pages. The Czech Society, German Bohemian Society, they have a Facebook page where people constantly post things like that, pictures. Or, you know, my uncle is wearing this uniform. What is it? Was it World War I? Was it World War II? So there are tons of those resources out there. And I'm just used to going to Google and see, okay, what's out there? Has somebody had a similar experience or a similar question? Now, some of those websites might be kind of iffy or they might not exist anymore, but you never know. But I would see if I could find anything, information about that photo studio. Where was it located? What city was it in? Then you could go to a city directory, and that city directory, if you put in that number, I bet you they had an advertisement for people to come and have their pictures taken. And slowly build on that, just, you know, keep adding to what you found out about that. That's why I like city directors. When I started out at Ancestry, we tried to build that German website. We were all gung-ho to go to Germany and get contracts from archives. And guess what? Germany went, nyeh. No American company is going to come in here and take our records. Okay?
Thank you.
So guess what we did? I went and contacted over 200 antiquarian dealers in Germany and Austria. We started buying up city directories, school books, until the German government and the German archivists came on board and said, yes, you can come in and digitize our records. Because usually what happens with a contract like that, they go in, they digitize the images, they index them, and then the archive receives the digitized images and the index so that people that go to the archive have also access to that. You know, and they're like, oh, yeah, maybe that does work. But until they got there, you have to remember back in 2005 and so forth, the internet in Europe was, people had to pay by the minute. They had to go to an internet cafe. It wasn't like over here where people had computers in their homes. So they were not going to spend money on maybe researching something, spending all this time that cost them a fortune And not a lot of stuff was indexed. And look what happened in the last 5 to 10 years, you know? And it's going to, with AI coming in, it's going to be even more. You know, you heard Family Search, that the indexing program basically has been suspended. And they're doing it all through AI and now having volunteers correct what AI missed. And guess how fast AI can digitize or index a collection versus people. When I went to Bangladesh and Golden Harvest, for instance, they have 3 shifts running. They could index a collection with 1 million images in 6 months. Well, guess what? AI, they don't have to pay anybody to do it, and it's going to go a lot faster. They just have to work on the quality, because the most difficult collections that they haven't had good luck with are the German collections. But I've worked on a French newspaper collection with AI already. Now German newspaper, because their format and their print, Frakturfond, is pretty consistent. Whereas German handwriting, you have 4 different handwriting styles that you have to figure out when you're looking at one record. So, and then the personal comes in. You know, can you imagine, when you think about it, these priests, they sat in their little cubby with a candle and their glass of sacrament wine, and were writing down the births and marriages, and you were wondering, why did it slant down? Because he had too much of them. So, I mean, but that's the reality. And everybody had different handwriting style. Some were reluctant to stop Latin, so they still, in the 1800s, were writing their entries in Latin because they didn't want to give it up. So, you know, all that comes into play, and that's what we all have to deal with. But all these resources out there are getting better and better and better to help you solve some of those mysteries you're sleuthing. Anybody have any other questions for me? Okay, so no matter how hard it is, the people that you're researching for, they become real. Especially if you start to build a little story around them. And every once in a while, you've researched, you've done all the best you can, you're getting so frustrated, you just kind of feel a presence. And that person is there behind you, just keep on trying, keep on trying, keep on trying. And so this is what we call the angels, that will help you to keep on trying, to continue your work. And that's pretty much it for me. Oh, thank you. Thank you, and thank you to my videographer and my support team here.